Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie. I am the head of publication here. And today I am thrilled to introduce a discussion around everything contact center culture and customer journeys. And joining me for that conversation are two excellent speakers. Yes, today I'm delighted to be joined by Katie Stabler, founder of Cultivate Customer Experience by Design, and Paul Hughes, head of CX sales across the UK, Ireland, and South Africa at Mitel. So thanks very much, both of you, for joining me for this discussion. And Katie, I'm going to start with you really quickly. And just in one line, I was wondering if you could let us know what Cultivate Customer Experience by Design means in practice.
In practice, it means helping organisations to embody the philosophy of customer experience. So really leading culture and not just a strategy.
Excellent. And I think when we talk about customer experience, we typically kind of immediately think about journeys, and lots of businesses will say, "Oh, we've mapped those journeys," and yet customer frustration still kind of starts to creep in. I don't know, maybe if you have any thoughts that can maybe help businesses and kind of where they might be going wrong here.
Do you know, if companies do map journeys, that's amazing, because actually I think they are few and far in between. But if we're on the topic of journey mapping, I think often companies fall foul of becoming heavily biased in their journey mapping. You know, we have so much data, but we don't often apply it in the right way. And journey mapping is one of these things that you absolutely need to apply data and insight to, but you can't just have a single lens. It has to be multifaceted. So I think if you are journey mapping and you're still seeing frustrations, cast a critical eye as to whether or not you're allowing bias to creep in.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads to the question, where should a lot of businesses start? So I don't know if you could maybe give us like a playbook in any way, like any 3 moves that a mid-market UK business might make to help kind of shift towards better customer journeys and culture too.
Well, start buy my book. No, I'm joking.
Definitely, I would recommend it.
But genuinely, it sounds so basic, but I would start by actually making sure the entire organisation understands what customer experience is. Because we talk about it, we just chuck that word out, those words, customer experience, it's part of business, but actually there is so much depth behind what actually makes a customer experience. So I'm talking psychology, the neuroscience, the incredible amount of design that it takes to actually deliberately and intentfully create the customer experience that you should be. So I would start by making sure the entire organisation has a basic principle understanding of what customer experience is. And I mean the entire organisation, because it's not just the frontline who impact the CX, it's absolutely everybody. So what is customer experience and how do you impact the customer experience? And honestly, that's where I start with every company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do fall into that trap of just kind of saying customer experience, but yet only talking about customer service. And as you say, the lens needs to be much broader. And I don't know, Paul, if there's anything you would add to that too.
Absolutely. I think that first of all, it's really interesting how perhaps the approach has changed over the many years that I've been involved in understanding customer requirements and engaging with different parts of the business. Seems basic, right? You know, if you want to understand how business works, talk to everybody. But as a technology seller and reseller, often we'd go into the part of the business that was going to use that piece of kit or application, and you'd get a very narrow and siloed view. So the result of that is that you might have technology deployments sitting in silos, UCaaS and CCaaS platforms. You never really see the true journey because they're not joined up properly. Mitel's approach is about trying to stitch the applications and the data together. So, for example, really straightforward thing would be the handoff from voice to chat or branch to contact center, joining various parts of the business together and applications and having that visibility so you can see it all in one pane. I think from a technology perspective, once you start to connect those dots and alongside Katie's cultural playbook, with if that thought process and mindset change is starting to emerge. Suddenly you've got a really powerful combination.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of sort of from the technology angle too, I guess we'd better talk about AI at some point as the buzzword of the year. But it sort of seems to divide a lot of opinions when I speak to people in the contact center. So I don't know, Kate, if you have any advice for kind of applying AI, but maybe in more of a human-centered, kind of cultural way without wrecking trust. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts around that.
It's such an interesting one, and especially when you talk about trust, because when you look at the industry reports that come out year on year, particularly the UK and US customer satisfaction index, trust comes out time and time again as being the biggest influencer of customer experience. And unfortunately, it's the thing that we struggle with most at the moment, which I think is incredibly sad, because if as a consumer, you don't have a basic trust for the providers or the service providers you're working with, I mean, it's a low bar, unfortunately. So if we can utilize technology, AI, to support that building of trust, then I'm absolutely all for it. I think the obvious answer here, but it is the right answer, I believe, is we've got to start with customer first and employee first. Actually, what are the problems that you have as an organization that you're trying to solve? What are the challenges that you face? I think we have previously fallen foul of seeing this kind of sexy, sparkly technology and thinking we must get something in. Everybody's using AI, we must get something in, but not strategically applying it in a way that actually makes sense to the business. And I do think we're transitioning past that now. I think actually organizations have been burnt and are stepping back and are taking more of a strategic approach. But I think we still need to be very, very, very mindful of that whole thing. Technology is the answer. What is the question again? I think we need to figure out that question first. And as long as you're doing that, as long as you're taking a strategic approach, that mindful approach, and actually thinking about challenges that you can solve, that's the place you need to start. Don't boil the ocean, start where it's needed and then build out from there.
Yeah, I think lots of really great advice there. I don't know, Paul, if there's anything you would add kind of around how you're seeing AI being applied to sort of real contact center strategies in your region.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I think one of the key words there is that mindful approach. I think, just to echo what Katie was saying, often we run towards the deployment of this new technology and it's at the expense of the outcome. We didn't even really know what the outcome was or what we wanted to achieve. But again, breaking it down to a very simple perspective, one of the key strategies for AI in contact centers is making sure customers can get to the right person faster, and probably more importantly, that when they get there, when they get to the agent or the resource, they have the right context and knowledge at their fingertips. So I think if you look at the feedback we're getting in our region, our partners and customers, they tell us that when AI becomes a collaborative resource, helping both sides of the conversation, so less repeating and explaining for the customer, they feel listened to and understood, and at the same time agents feel empowered, that's really a good example of how AI can build trust instead of eroding it.
Yeah, I think lots of interesting things, but I do kind of want to bring back the conversation to something that's a key feature within your new book, Katie, and that's in terms of describing customer experience as a movement, not necessarily a project. I don't know if you could maybe talk a little bit about what you mean by that and what that shift potentially means for the boardroom.
Ultimately, the thing that I see most commonly, sadly, when it comes to CX in organizations is that it's treated as normally a project, a tactical initiative, something we're going to focus on in Q1, and then maybe something different in Q2. And if we're lucky, we'll continue something else in Q3. And the problem is that this is investment heavy. If you are investing time and resource into it, fantastic. But if it is done in a piecemeal approach, you will most likely see some quick wins, but they're going to falter. They're going to tipple out. And unfortunately, when we continually have this question, does customer experience provide a return on investment? Quite often, you're not going to be able to answer that in the way you want to if you are taking these tactical, project-based, approaches to delivering CX. It needs to be more than that. It needs to be embedded into culture. So when I talk about developing a culture that you lead as opposed to a strategy on a page, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We've got to move past it being a strategy. It has to be a strategy still. It has to still be something that guides the business. But it needs to be so much more than that, because we are still seeing, I think 14 years down the line of the UK-US Customer Satisfaction Index, we're still seeing a decline in customer experience. So something we are doing is wrong. The approach that we are taking is wrong. And it isn't to say that it's wasted, because there are so many influencing factors as to why customer satisfaction isn't where we want it to be. And it's not just through failed efforts, but the efforts need to become more holistic. And everything that we're talking about, the data piece, it all needs to come into it. It just cannot be this siloed approach between departments, between people, between separated data pots. It has to be something way more robust than what it is at the moment.
Yeah, but I guess when a lot of brands start kind of to embrace the movement, as you say, it often seems like the tech stack is kind of what comes under most scrutiny. So Paul, it'd be great to bring you in again here. I don't know if there are any big changes that you're seeing in sort of board level technology decisions.
Well, certainly, I think when a board says that CX is the movement, when they've really understood what Katie's talking about and has that culture change and mindset, and they're willing to really permeate that through the organization, without a doubt, they have to rationalize their technology stack. So we see too many UK firms with overlapping solutions, UCaaS, CCaaS, and analytical tools. So consolidating that with a partner like Mitel, it adds simplicity, it frees budget, and it clears the path for real transformation throughout the organization. But it's definitely a combination of those things. You have to have the mindset change, and then a really strategic view of a long-term view of consolidation of your technology. Simplify things, keep it simple.
Yeah, simplicity is so important. I completely agree with you. When one of the biggest challenges that we face as organizations, especially when we're talking about customer experience, resource. We do not have the time to do the things we want to do. And it's because we are too reactive as companies. We're always firefighting. And actually, one of the core foundations of what I try to do with my clients is exactly what you're talking about, Paul. Consolidate, simplify, stop that reactivity, enable that time to actually move into proactivity, and ideally everything else will start to flow. So simplicity, absolutely my language.
Excellent. And it kind of just generally from today's conversation, it seems like we have almost two sides of a coin. There's obviously the culture and the technology side. I don't know, just to finish, Paul, if you have like a perspective from your experience in the contact center world and the unified communication world, how we can sort of make these customer journeys a bit more visible in practice.
Well, certainly, as I said earlier, it's important to not create data silos when you're putting technology in. But I bring it back to, you've probably heard me say this a lot, Charlie, and it's my mantra in this. We have to keep the human experience at the heart of our technology decisions. If we forget that, then we are doing it for all the wrong reasons. So that's it. Simple as that. Keep HX, I call it, at the heart of all our AI decisions, and we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more.
Excellent. And I think we've covered a lot of ground there, Zen, but I think that's a really great place to end today's chat. I really want to thank both Katie and Paul for joining me today, and also everybody for watching too. Bye for now.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.